your hot ex-drunk girlfriend who on a Friday night at 3 in the morning might call you up to fuck her brains out, but chances are nothing's going to happen. And that's the best way I can describe Athens.
Did you see a gorilla the other night?
Only a town like Athens could create the 8-track gorilla.
You had Kindercore Records was on a rise, and the Elephant Six collective had just started to get some national press, and I think I think by that time the first Neutral Milk Hotel record was out. The Olivia Tremor Control were working on their first album. Of Montreal had just formed.
There were kickball competitions going on.
That was a really good time to do something freaky because people would show up. You know what I mean? You'd say like, "Hey, I'm plugging in 14 percolators and we're gonna play some bongos over it," and you'd get a room full of people.
We got a big freak show planned for y'all tonight here at the theater. It's 1999. I think we got a live one going tonight. You know, Ronald Reagan and George Bush, they ain't got nothing but a limp dick. Some ugly wives. They got ugly wives and a limp dick. But I tell you what, President Clinton's dick is hard, and he likes to party.
That was the mid to late 90s, and I think people were into being weirder then.
The defiant sort of avant thumbing of the nose at all of that fey indie pillow fighting kickball bullshit.
Forcing himself into the rock band scene.
Well, if you weren't from Athens, or if you just moved to Athens, like that was like the key show to go see that kind of defined all of Athens, in my opinion.
I think he just appeared fully formed, and he was just a complete mystery. He just almost like he appeared out of the ether. And
my memory of when I actually saw him is pretty hazy. It'd probably be somewhere between 1997 and 2004.
94?
About 99, right before his Hernes century.
The debut of the gorilla costume was a Melted Men show at the Manhattan.
It was at the Manhattan, and my wife and I sat up front. I don't think she was my wife at the time, but we sat up front and we were waiting for the gorilla to come out, and we didn't know what to expect exactly. And like as I said, we were in the front row, so that was not the place you really want to be when a gorilla comes out with an 8-track player around his neck and karaoke and trying to get you to sing along.
There were these flyers that appeared around town that the 8-track gorilla was going to appear at Peppino's, which was a pizza parlor downtown. It was located in what used to be a Gold's Gym. And it turns out it was canceled because the gorilla had an injury. So his actual debut was 2 or 3 weeks later at a club called the Hi-Hat Club, which doesn't exist anymore either. It's some frat bar now. Stacy organized a gong show.
It's rude and it was raw.
And then the gorilla came on, and no, the gorilla was not gonged.
The gorilla could never be gonged.
Say no, the gorilla is immune to the gong.
Of course he's going to be immune to the gong. And I fixed it so he would win. I didn't want to know where he was from, and I didn't want to know where he would be going. I just wanted to know that he would always be around. Especially a gorilla who is so enamored with planned obsolescence, you know.
A-Track Gorilla is dedicated to the spirit of keeping analog music alive in the 21st century. So get rid of those DVDs and those CDs and just crank out them scratchy vinyl LPs and bust out the old 8-track because they're going to be around for a while. They're kind of like cockroaches, you know what I'm saying?
The 8-track gorilla performed. I seem to remember Deanna Mann having something to do with it as well. But there were these women, rather attractive young women, painted gold in gold bikinis. And they were dancing kind of go-go style on the bar. And I seem to also remember there being a large cage, like you would put a large dog in, that the girls would get in and out of. I seem to remember Deanna Mann having something to do with it, or at least she was here. I wish I could remember more about the night, but this was a bar and I was drinking a lot.
And so it's like, this guy needs something to balance him out. You know, this guy is such a weird comic book type figure that he needs a nemesis.
Some people believe there's not duality in the universe, but there is. You have the 8-track gorilla and you have the secret army.
We were expecting something so kitschy and so bad that it was good, that it was entertaining, but it was just so bad that it was worse. But yeah, it became this self-perpetuating thing that had kind of a life of its own.
When I'm driving this car, he better fear for his life.
I know that there's like the army for the 8-track gorilla and the army against the 8-track gorilla. Like, which one is which?
What do you plan on doing with him if you caught him? Do you know where he is? He said. And I was like, what do you plan on doing with him if you got him? And I was like, he goes, I just want to take off his, his head or whatever. And I was like, He was like, do you know him? And I was like, eh. I had the kid in the car and everything. So I went and I went and called him up and went, oh my God, they're out to get you! And he went, so it was really simple.
The first thing I thought was, man, somebody's parents are going to be really mad at them.
Missile tubes and satellite dishes and simian detectors.
Well, mine had a working Roman candle launcher with you'd operate from the roof hatch. Heat-based weapons, a lot of them looked like they would have more missile platform sort of things.
When the spy car creator was putting them together, he found some classified things, I think, that he put in there that I think had only been used up to that point by Diane Marie.
Spy cars are they were like early sighting machines,
I had one. My spy car lasted for about a year before it died. It finally threw a rod and died on the side of the road.
Who knows? Now the spy car fleet is pretty much wiped out. I haven't seen a spy car in a while around here in Athens too, so.
Just because he likes music and we like music and he can karaoke to 8-track tapes doesn't mean that he's one of us,
Ready, we'll stay. Ready, we'll Life's a rollerball. Life is a rollerball. You don't know how lucky you are, boys. Back in the USSR. All right, well, we got lots more. We got lots more where that came from. I got time for a couple more songs. You want to hear another one?
I love the 8-track gorilla. I'm in love.
What you want to hear now?
God, I still just get such a hard on thinking about what his shows were like.
Would come out with his ironing board with his 8-track players on it, and he'd pop it in for the show, and there'd be like 20 seconds of silence while the 8-track spun and finally got to the song. And
Whoa. I really want to get down and boogie today. So if you will, check out this group. They got a message, believe me. Uh-oh. I lost my power source.
Why isn't the tape queued up, and the 8-tracks that just sort of melted.
No shame in the fact that what he was doing was irritating.
Catwalk of tables that went from the stage all the way out, maybe about 7 or 8 tables deep. And as the show went on, the tables weakened, and his balance would get a little worrisome over the course of the show, and the whiskey didn't help. But by the end of the night, those tables were just teetering, and he would fall, and it was just a disaster, and I loved every minute of it. He would just stand still and just constantly jog in place, and he would get so tired and winded that he would have to kneel and miss the lyrics, skip to the next song. If it was a 19-year-old kid doing it, it wouldn't quite have the punch.
And he was just singing along to his 8-track tapes.
You know, he's whipping out some T-Rex in a gorilla suit, so.
He always seemed to be surrounded by ladies with glitter.
I don't know, somehow you didn't get the impression that she was being used.
The thing that impressed me the most was that the gorilla had absolutely the worst taste in music. It would not be unusual to go to an 8-track gorilla show and not only hear songs that you wish you'd never heard again, but to see him really, really get into it as if he cared about this stuff. I mean, you know, Journey and just this total AOR crap.
A gorilla singing "Flirting with Disaster." It's almost like porn.
Singing 1970s light rock hits and stealing women.
Townies, frat boys, homeless people, you name it. The whole pantheon was there to support the 8-track gorilla phenomenon.
He'd let some balloons out into the crowd. When people would pop the balloons, like, he complained that the balloons were very expensive and not to pop them, you know.
It's a lot of jaw dropping. I mean, really, because at first it doesn't make any sense, and then in the end it still doesn't make any sense.
I mean, just the badness of it reached a whole new level of good, just complete uniqueness. And
Hello, my name is Annie. I've performed with the 8-track gorilla for numerous years. It was 8-track singing songs and girls in fur bikinis dancing.
Like the definition of a showman, basically. He's like this dude, he's like older than us and he lives in a laundromat. So before I met him, I was like, oh, so we're having like a homeless dude at our party. Like, okay, I hope he doesn't steal our shit. Like, there was, I don't even know, but I guess he has bananas and there was just bananas like, I don't know if you've ever stepped on a banana like 1,000 times, but it's really fucking hard to get off linoleum once that happens.
Yeah, so there I was, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, broad daylight on Broad Street, whipping the gorilla, and there are children watching. Balloons are flying, and people were very happy to see us. It was a good time.
Singing Opera House when the gorilla took over the stage.
Well, you should ask somebody else. I was a little out of it that year.
I myself didn't feel very safe. All of a sudden, this ape appears and grabs the microphone, and I was scared to death, but we had a show to do. I couldn't stop. But he grabbed the microphone and announced to a bunch of frightened youngsters in the audience that grunge is not dead in Seattle, and I'll never forget it.
Playing. And the audience was really befuddled. They were just looking like, who let this girl on stage? Is this part of the show, or is...
That was the best part, because like they were really shocked and like really taken aback. They didn't know if it was part of the show or if somebody had just hijacked the show or like what.
Barreled out there and grabbed the mic, started saying stuff about, Seattle, Washington, home of grunge. And what else? It was a surprise to us too. He didn't say he was going to do it. It just.
Grunge was not dead in Athens, Georgia.
We played a random backyard in New Jersey, and
we were on tour with the music tapes. The music tapes are kind of like this imaginary traveling experience. We took him on the road. He said he had talent.
And it was the House Capsule Tour, which was a tour of people's backyards and living rooms.
This is a really, really, really nice, rich town, and we didn't know what the music tapes were doing there at all.
Well,
it was a really weird vibe because it was somebody's parents' house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Beware. Beware the savage lure, which is River's Edge.
Because he had the suit on, because he had the mic, he could just go up to them, bump and grind, and it was okay.
It's a timeless performance because we're remembering it like it was yesterday.
Right, six and a half years later, and
we're still talking.
There's a pretty infamous incident that happened at the 40 Watt where one of these sort of like transformer cars came in through the front doors of the club and chased after the 8-track gorilla driving around in a full club of people.
Elf power, and I kind of conned the 8-track gorilla, hey, you want to open up for us, Well,
he had just finished murdering a David Bowie tune, and I guess that was the final straw. We stormed the stage, held his backup singers at bay, put a syringe to his neck, dragged him into a waiting car, and left the club with him as our hostage.
It was so fast and furious, and the car was such a huge distraction that it was a lot of, what was that? A lot of what was that going on?
And I think that was not approved by the club and might have caused a little bit of trouble, maybe legal trouble for the 8-track. That was all suppressed by the media, but as far as I know.
We took out a corner of the Pain and Wonder and drove up the sidewalk. Actually, he shat in his hand and was attempting to smear it on the back of my head, but he was thwarted by our henchmen.
As far as what I saw, it was a flawless maneuver.
But no one can really capture the gorilla.
The town, I'm not really sure what it is, but it seems like the fun is gone from the creative, musical community in Athens, and that people have the bands that are still around have separated off and don't really play out as much. They've had more success touring, and they sort of hang out, at their own place and do their own thing. And whereas there used to be all these house parties and things like that were really sort of a haven for stuff like the gorilla, I think that creative energy in Athens is maybe moving in a different direction than music now.
Can't be done again.
I miss 8-track.
Hello. Athens has gotten to take itself way too seriously and it really gets on my nerves. I'm glad I'm a mom.
Talent borrows, genius steals.
I was like, get over it. I mean, that's the show. He's a genius.
Thank you, I'm the 8-track gorilla. Keep it on for the kids. Thank you, good night. Happy holidays.
should have been like an armadillo or something without hair, because it's got to be. There's a reason why there aren't other gorillas in the South.